Hello, everybody. Wambui Bahati here. Welcome to 70 Years and Beyond. Today, I'm taking you back to 1968. The picture that you're about to see on your screen, there it is. That is me with my mother on my graduation day. I don't remember the exact date, but it was June of 1968 in Greensboro, North Carolina. I am graduating from James B. Dudley High School. You see, my mother looks so beautiful, and my mother has a big smile on her face, and she is so happy and excited. My older sister, I have a sister 2 years older, she graduated 2 years before me from the same high school, and at the time this picture was taken, my sister was a student at Howard University in Washington, D.C. My mother is excited because she's going, oh yes, my second daughter. I've done it twice now. I have two younger brothers. So my mother's counting down. She says, 1 down, 2 down now. I got 2 to go, but I got 2 children through high school. And she felt so happy about that. Now, if you look at my face, I'm not smiling. I'm not that happy. I'm trying to put on a good face. But I had told my mother that I was not going to my graduation. I had told her that I thought it didn't make any sense. Why should I show up at a ceremony just to get a piece of paper? It probably wouldn't even be the real paper anyway. They were probably going to hand everybody some fake paper and then let you know when to come to the school to get the real paper, or they would mail it to you. So there was no need to go to this fake ceremony to get a fake certificate, and I was not going to go. It just didn't make any sense. None of it made sense to me, and I was rebelling that I wasn't going to go. My mother tried to talk to me. She would say things like, you're going to regret it if you don't go march with your class. And she would say, if you're not going to do it for you, then you should at least do it for me, because I want to see it. You may not want to be there, but I want to be there. And when I get there, I want to see you. And so we went back and forth and about this. And then finally, as you see, I am dressed in my gown and cap. And this picture was taken, I don't know if it was taken just before or when we got home, but this was taken on the day of my graduation. I did attend my graduation, and my mother, as you can see from the big smile on her face, did attend the graduation. Now, the reason I went, or the reason I told myself the only reason I went, was because I was in my high school band, and the band was required to show up to play to offer musical numbers during the graduation. And so I told myself the only reason I'm going to this graduation is because I'm in the band and we're required to show up. And if I have to go anyway to play with the band, I might as well put on the cap and gown and go so my mother will be happy. That was my thinking. Now, I look back on those, and my mother was right. I would have regretted it had I not gone. So I'm glad that I did go. It turned out well. But when I think about what was happening around me, I feel that my rebelling was a reaction to what was going on around me. Okay, so 1968, June, that's when I graduated. Okay, a few months before that was when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Okay, June, my graduation. Early in the month of June, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated. And I believe we saw it live on the air. This man just come out and just shot this guy. So we got these 2 assassination things going on. There is a war going on where nobody is sure why we are fighting the war. And then there are people who are for the war, people who are against the war, and those 2 sides are clashing to the point where there are some people who are so much against the war that they're actually angry at the soldiers who are fighting the war. And so when soldiers are coming home, or soldiers have on their uniform and they say they're fighting, they've been in Vietnam, there are people who actually are angry at them. So it was a very unnerving, unsettling, what is going on in my world time. And then it was In 1968, when the Civil Rights Act was signed, also known as the Fair Housing Act. So we had a lot of the civil rights, the unevenness of the treatment between black and whites was still going on there. So I was uncertain of my future. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was concerned about the world. What world is this? That's how I was feeling when I look back on the reason why I rebelled against going to my graduation was because I was feeling pretty hopeless and I was feeling that I didn't understand what was going to happen to me and to my country and to my world. Earlier in that year, I had read in a 17 magazine about a school up in New York City where you could go and study acting. And I really wanted to be an actress and or slash stand-up comic. I wrote to this school in secret because I found that when I told people I wanted to be an actress, that was not accepted well. I was told I needed to be realistic. I was told that I needed to have something to fall back on. And it was when I would say I want to be an actress, the response was not good. So I learned to stop saying I wanted to be an actress. In fact, I believe I was telling people that I wanted to be a social worker or a nurse because those things were safe. People respected those professions. And no one, when I said, oh, I'm going to be a social worker, people congratulated me, and tried to lift me up. So that's what I would say. But secretly, I wanted to be an actress. And so I sent away for this application to the school. This school was called the NYU School of the Arts. And so it took me a long time. It was a very detailed application and a lot of essays and things like that. And so it took me a long time to fill out the application. But after I filled out the application, I didn't notice that at the bottom, I didn't notice that until I'd finished that you were supposed to send in $100 with the application. $100. We're talking 1968. $100. That was a lot of money. I was asking my parents if I could have the money to send in with my application. My father would always just kind of laugh and walk away. He thought it was some type of joke, $100. Oh, yeah, right. And then my mother, she didn't walk away, but she kind of fought it. She pushed against it. Why this school? Why $100? That's a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. And she went on and I kept pushing for it. And so then about 2 weeks of me every day saying, I really wish I could get $100. I'll get a job. I'll work. I'll pay you back. After a week of saying that, about 2 weeks of saying that, my mother finally came home one day with $100. Now, what I wanted her to do was give me the $100 and say, I'm so proud of you. I want you to go for your dream. I got this $100 for you because I love you. But she didn't say that. She said, here's your $100. Now, I don't want to hear about this $100 again. I had to borrow this $100 from a loan company downtown. So I felt, this big. But I bought me a money order and I sent in my application for that school. I got a response back and they said, well, everyone needs to audition. We need to see you in person. And so the city that was closest to me was Washington, D.C. And so I went to Washington, D.C. to audition. And I believe the only reason I was allowed to go was because my sister was living in Washington, D.C. and she was able to meet me at I believe I took the train station, and go with me to my audition. So I auditioned, and then a few weeks later, I received a letter, and they congratulated me and said, you are welcome. We want you to come to NYU School of the Arts. And then on the second page, it was a list of all the fees and when the money needed to be in. And I'm going to tell you, it was a lot of money. I don't think... In 1968, I don't think the fees were much different from what fees for NYU are today. Because I figured if I collected all the salaries of all the people in my community and put them all together, I still wouldn't have enough for 1 year of NYU School of the Arts was going to cost. So I decided it was time to abandon that dream, which I did. And so then I was preparing to go to Washington, D.C., where my sister was, to go to Howard University, with in the back of my head thinking that once I get away, once I get to Washington, D.C., then I'm going to start plotting again on how to get to New York, because it seemed like that was the place where you needed to be if you wanted to be in theater. So anyway, I was resolved. I had decided that I was going to go to Howard University. And then, so on the day before, one day before I was to leave to go to Howard University in Washington, D.C., I received a telegram. Now, a telegram, there are probably a lot of young people that don't know what a telegram is, but we didn't have emails and texts and all these ways to get something to you in a hurry. So we had telegrams, and they were usually on a yellow paper. And I remember receiving our house would get a few telegrams, and usually they were not good. It was bad news. It was to let you know that a relative had died or something like that. That's what the only telegrams we ever got, I remember, were of that nature. So when this person came to the door that day with a telegram, and it had my name on it, my name used to be, and we'll talk about that in a future video, John Ann Washington. John, John, that was my name, John Ann, A-N-N, Washington. And so when they brought the telegram and it had my name on it, this was very frightening. I'm like, well, who would be sending me a telegram? Well, when I opened the telegram, it essentially said this: Dear Miss Washington, due to the untimely death of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the unrest on our campus, monies have been made available to bring more minorities into our programs. Congratulations, you have been awarded a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. scholarship to New York University School of the Arts. And that is how I got to New York City. And when I got to New York City, it was a whole world for me. I had never been to New York. Remember, my audition was in Washington, D.C. I had never stepped foot in New York until 1968, after I graduated, and I went to New York to go to NYU School, New York University School of the Arts. And it was also the first time, not only was the first time in New York City, it was the first time I would be going to school with, not only going to school, but living with white people. So I was in a dorm at the school, which was totally integrated, and I was excited about it. And I felt we were moving forward, and I was good. I just felt so happy to be there, and I felt happy to be in the dorm, and I felt happy to be in class. Not only there were black people, but there were also white people. And for me, that was a first, and I thought that was exciting. And I was also living right by Washington Square Park in New York City, in Greenwich Village. And that place was a backdrop of hippies and activists and protesters and artists, and there was, every day my mind was being blown. And I found the school exciting, and we just had a lot of acting, dancing, circus. It was just voice. It was just an amazing school. But what I realized is that no one had prepared me for this journey. And so I found that I would later have some type of mental issues, because it was just not only mind-boggling, but I heard people say, oh, that blew my mind. Well, the whole thing just blew my mind, because it was so different from where I had come from. And the people, economic-wise, for the first time, I was meeting people who were just wealthy beyond, I mean, there were people in my city who were wealthy, but I never met people who were this wealthy that I was in school with. And they, I had never been on an airplane, and these people were talking about all the trips they had taken all over the world, and they were talking about their summer home and this home and that home, and they were just very wealthy people. And I was not, I didn't hold, I was not angry. I was not upset. I was interested and I was curious. And of course, then you learn that it wasn't that I didn't hang out with certain people because they were white. I didn't hang out with certain people because I realized I had nothing in common with them, but there were other white people who economically were on my level, and I hung out with them. I'm going to close with showing you the picture. Well, there's me, my official graduation portrait there in my cap. And here I am with my mother, who was so happy, and I was just a little rebel.